supposedly some of these comments are as a result of the attempt against Mayor Mamdani in New York. Who
There's an attempt against him?
Was raised Muslim, was he not? Himself. Yeah. So they're being anti-Muslim and they're finally defending Mamdani over something.
To be clear, the attack wasn't on Mayor Mamdani. It was on
at his
protest.
house.
It was at his house? Oh my God.
It was attacking protesters, people protesting Mamdani.
Right by his house.
To frame it as an anti-Muslim attack would actually completely reverse what happened. Someone who
I'm
shouted,
not saying that it was
Allah
anti-Muslim.
Akbar,
I'm saying that they're
bomb.
She's implying that it was an attack against him and it was at his house because she's trying to frame it as an aggression against him or his residence. That's how she's trying to frame it. Everybody knows that.
That didn't go off at the protesters.
They're trying to spin this as much as possible. This is the reason why I said the only way that you can deal with these people is to just completely oppress them and then just beat them down. That's the only way you can deal with them. You can never deal with them in the, like, basically, I think a lot of right-wing people make the mistake of trying to debate and reason with a person like this. There is no reason that you can't debate and reason with a person like this. All you can do is consolidate power and work in every single best interest that you can to remove any ability for them to have influence over anything. That's the thing that you should be doing. The moment that you try to even talk to them, you're making a mistake. The only thing you do is you go after them as aggressively as possible, and then eventually they don't have any power anymore. It's a wild take. No, it's not. I mean, like, I'll pull you up about this, and I'll listen to what you're saying here. This is a person who's trying to reframe a terrorist attack where a Muslim threw a nail bomb into a crowd of peaceful protesters as an attack on a Muslim. Do you think that there is ever any universe where you can find common ground with a person like that? And I'm asking you, like, this is a genuine question. Like, how can you possibly find common ground with a person that's trying to reframe a terrorist attack as being an attack on the person who is actually the terrorist? How does that work? Like, do you actually think that you can have a civil discourse with them? Do you think that you can, like, you know, come together and, you know, listen to them and they'll hear your point of view? And if you come up and you present a better argument, they're going to hear it and then change their point of view? Like, I mean, you don't really believe this, do you? I mean, I don't see how anybody can fall into such a naive trap. It's very obvious that's the case. I saw people in non-political Twitch chats spin this narrative too. It's extremely dangerous that the average person believes entirely false narratives. It is. And that's why, again, you can absolutely hear out their thoughts. If you want to shut down any conversation, that's wild. Why should you hear out a person that you know is lying? Do you think that you should hear out the opinions of a schizophrenic? Like, let's say there's a schizophrenic person that tells you that the moon is talking to them. Do you think that that person is worth hearing out? Of course not. The entire idea that just because somebody's saying something means it deserves to be listened to is insane. And they're idiot people with idiot ideas. Exactly. Exactly. Yep, there you go. And so, yes. And why'd you start stream earlier today? Because I've been saying every single day I wanted to do it. It's daylight savings time. That's actually the main reason. So some people aren't recalibrated yet, but that's okay. And yeah, I'll wait for this real quick. And yeah, why do you assume they're lying and calling them schizo? This type of dialogue is the problem? Well, okay, so I assume that you're lying. Do you think that this woman is behaving in good faith whenever she's saying these things? Do you think that she is? Why do you assume they're lying? I'm not assuming they're lying. I'm hearing what they're saying, and I'm coming to the conclusion that they're lying based off of what they're saying. Yeah, type of dialogue is most of the problem. No, it's not. The entire idea that you can reason with people like this is a huge mistake. It's another naivete that Western communities and Western audiences and Western culture believes in. They believe that because they value critical thought and logical thinking, that everywhere else in the world and every other type of person values the same thing. They don't. You can't reason a person out of a position they didn't reason themselves into. This person did not reason themselves into this position. Therefore, any sort of reasonable conversation to them will not convince them that they're wrong. It's the same as, you know, you can't explain to somebody who believes the Bible that stars being this old is like it's like a fucking proof that the earth isn't 6,000 years old. You can't do that. It's not the way the world works. Sure seems like there's some value in their stance. She sure seems like it's okay to sit there and shut down the opposition. You're making a problem larger. Actually, it's not. So what value do you think there is in the discourse of reframing a terrorist as a victim? What value in discourse is there with that? How does that work? She's literally lying. It's blatant. Yeah, she's lying. I mean, I don't even understand this. You can be a Christian and know the universe isn't 6,000 years old. Well, the person who thinks that it is 6,000 years old is not going to be convinced by, you know, you explaining carbon dating to them. That's the point that I'm making. Does chatter even know what context is? You talking in so many absolutes? Yeah, I think that once a person engages in a level of dishonesty like that's this big, that you should never take anything that they say seriously ever again. And the reason why, and again, a stopped clock is right twice a day, right? It's definitely possible that some woman like this can have a good take on something else, but it's purely coincidental. And so that's really my point. The discourse isn't for her benefits, for others watch her. Well, I'll wait for one more comment on this. She's going to victim and literally admitted to being ISIS-inspired? Yes, exactly. CNN told Biden was sharp as attack? Yeah, exactly. The argument should be that it gives an honest person the opportunity to point out the dishonesty. Well, that doesn't work. See, the thing is that it doesn't... You're not understanding this. Like, you don't understand the way that these people try to spread propaganda. Their goal and the way that they try to spread propaganda is by creating a false consensus around a narrative and then pushing that narrative so hard that people are afraid to challenge it. They basically want people to live with a lie and then force that cognitive dissonance on everybody. That's what's happening. And this happened with ICE protests. It happens with everything else. It looks like this person's not really making any responses. I'm just going to ban them. And anyway, there's a biblical wisdom. Don't throw the pearls to the swine. Yeah, I know. There's like the comic for that too. And so emotional manipulation with dishonest reporting. Yeah, exactly. And so Miss Solarts, again, same with gender shit. I think the gender shit is a great example of that. And I think that to the extent that we take these people seriously is just such a huge mistake. It looks like there's not a lot of these yet, but, you know, we'll have to wait and see. Let me unmute this. It looks like there's nothing else, but, you know, I'll, yeah, okay, we'll see what happens. The chatter's right. In shutting them down before they can articulate themselves, you create a cancel culture. That's what you hate too. You need to hear them out and pin them down on their bad faith argument and disarm it. You think that you can pin people down on a bad faith argument and disarm it. See, this is the naivete of the Western mind. Let me explain this. The reason why you use cancel culture is because it works. Canceling people works. That's why people do it. This is like saying if you shoot your enemies, they win. You absolutely should use tools that are effective. The idea that you should not use tools that are effective because your enemy uses them is ridiculous. Nobody is actually against cancel culture. Let me actually dispel this rumor right now. Nobody is actually against cancel culture. Somebody gets exposed and they get found out to be a pedophile that are talking to underage girls, then I think everybody agrees this person should be canceled. Somebody gets exposed as like a crypto scammer and they're scamming their audience, selling them things, and the people aren't getting what they're wanting, then I think that everybody can say easily this person should be canceled. So very clearly, we're not talking about cancel culture in any sort of an objective sense. So, and canceled is nice. Deleted is more like it. Yes, exactly. And that's what you hate too. You need to hear them out and pin an argument. You think that finding a bad faith argument and being able to expose a bad faith argument will cause these people to admit that they're wrong or cause people like them to realize that they're wrong. They will never do that. The words are just simply a means of manipulation to them. They're not using these words in order to communicate they're not trying to communicate an idea. They're trying to make you believe something. So when they lose, it doesn't matter. And when they win, then you lose. There's not a win condition that you have by engaging in critical thought with a person who has no value for critical thought. That's a mistake that I think a lot of Westerners make. And you'll see this as time goes on. We see this in Germany with the AfD. They get canceled as much that they create a firewall. Even the AfD has good points. I agree with you here. Yeah, but the difference is that the AfD are actual Germans. These people are, in a lot of cases, not real Americans. They don't care about American values. They just want to ruin America. That's the reality. How can you sniff those kinds of people out? It's actually extremely easy. It's very easy to find out. And so they get canceled as much? Yeah, the AfD is a totally different paradigm. It is. And also, again, the people that are shutting them down are the ones that are illogical. And yeah, what about rational Westerners that are trying to convince to be on your side? Rational Westerners that believe that stuff anybody who's rational will have never come to that conclusion in the first place. And I think that that's a big mistake that you're making, is that you think that rational Westerners will ever listen to this and think that there's any validity in it. Anybody who hears this and agrees with it, or even thinks that there's any semblance of validity to it, is a complete retard, and their opinion should be completely disregarded. And you can't win that kind of a person over. The only thing that you can do is hope that they don't vote. That's really all you can do. Or hope that you can convince them. Oh, there's another one? Okay, I'll watch this one too. Why not?
I can't speak for Mike Johnson, but I would say we've had 2 terrorist attacks here in the last 10 days.
And isn't it? I wonder what would happen if there was a terrorist attack at CNN. I bet these people would be talking about how terrible terrorist attacks are for 2 years, and how much it's shaking the country to its core, and how much it's something that, like, oh, nobody should have this happen. And yeah, listen, this is crazy. She's trying to downplay this, or at her house. Yeah, exactly.
I can't speak for Mike Johnson, but I would say we've had 2 terrorist attacks here in the last 10 days.
What does that have to do with Muslims?
Can we condemn those? Why are we?
Of course. What does that have to do with Muslims?
What does that have to do with Muslims?
Because they're the ones doing the terrorist attacks. Duh. Like, this is the type of cognitive dissonance that you're supposed to engage in. Yes, obviously.
There's a radical strain of Islam that's led to these terrorist attacks. Obviously, the vast majority of Muslims are
people
peaceful.
with terroristic ideologies here and all around the world. What does that have to do with whether Muslims belong in American society as a group?
I don't think that's even what's being discussed.
I'd like to hear the answer.
I'm talking about what Mike Johnson was saying.
That's what I'm talking about. I'm talking about what he didn't
say.
say.
You have to read his full quote.
What I'm talking about is what he didn't
Islamic
say.
extremism without compromising our commitment to religious liberty. He was chiding those 2 members of Congress. And by the way, as a Republican, I believe that the same amendment.
This is, if this narrative is allowed to continue and people aren't able to criticize the radical terrorist Islam that is once again not allowed inside of Muslim countries, like the UAE, they don't even allow this. But in America, for some reason, we're supposed to tolerate it. What it's going to lead to is people that will be openly saying that, like, and I think that remigration is a great example of this. So I think that, like, maybe 10 years ago or 15 years ago, the amount of people that were saying to, turn away the boats or especially sink the boats was extremely minimal. It was a very, very small, like, this is in Europe. And I think Europe is kind of a mining canary for where things are happening, where things are going in America too. So eventually there will be people that will just simply say that, and that will be their position. And I think that Nick Fuentes is a great example of that. Nick basically just says it. Like, a lot of people on CNN still talk around it, and they still try to use the reason why this woman is, like, she doesn't know what to say is actually because that is what she thinks. That is actually what she thinks, but she can't say that. The moment that people do think that they can say that is the moment that I think things change very, very quickly and very, very fast. So that's where I think things are going. And the moment that, like, you don't have it, and again, you're trying to reframe the conversation around all Muslims whenever the problem are 2 terrorists. That's the main issue. Yeah, I have something to say safe. Yes, exactly.
chiding those two members of Congress. And by the way, as a Republican, I believe that the same amendment.
There are strong language.
The same amendment that gives those two members of Congress.
Or is it bigotry, Joe?
The same amendment.
I think that we are speed running right now. I do. I think we are speed running. And I don't know if people realize it, but I think things are changing extremely fast right now. And because I'm listening to like the narrative, I'm listening to how people are talking about this. I think that the discourse on this topic is going to be like 180 degrees different in like 2 years from now, if not less than that.
That gives those two members of Congress the right to say things that are offensive, that I find actually offensive as well, is the same amendment that permits Muslim people to be here proudly and practice their faith.
Nobody said that Mike Johnson should throw.
Yeah, sure. And can you let the gentleman talk? No, they never let these people talk at all. 100%, brother, is about 60 years ahead. And how the fuck is this the main conversation? U.S. Muslims? Fuck them all. I mean, I don't think that's really a big thing, right? I mean, I don't think it really has to do with Muslims. It's just more, I think that it's another example of an identity group clearly having a larger propensity to, you know, like, let's say terrorism, right? With this case, it's very obvious that the overwhelming majority of these terrorist attacks, at least for religious-based ones, are Islamic, right? This is obvious. Everybody knows this. But we're not supposed to say that, number one. And then whenever people bring it up, people say, well, what about every other Muslim? Well, obviously not every Muslim does that. I mean, of course not. But there are some that do, and that needs to be discussed in a legitimate way. And when you constantly reframe it into trying to make a blanket statement, I think that it alienates a lot of people. And I think that's what's happened. Same way they mix legal and illegal immigrants. Yeah, I think that's exactly it. And that's the same exact thing, is they try to like blend them together, make it like, oh, it's the same thing. I don't think it is at all. They don't speak out against the radicals, though. That's because they protect the radicals. That's the reason why they want the radicals. That's the only rational reason that you can come to. And if cancel culture works so well, like you say, can you explain Trump winning 2 elections and the right winning so much in the last 8 years? Well, it's because Elon Musk bought Twitter. That's the reason why. If Elon Musk had not bought Twitter, I think that we would be living inside of the same cancel culture hellhole that we existed in before. I think the truth is that if Elon didn't buy Twitter, we would probably be still talking about how people need to get, their next booster shot. People need to get this next thing. It's scary. Yeah, no, think about it. Because Elon buying Twitter was the crack in the dam of freedom of speech and freedom of expression. And for the longest time, you could not express yourself on any platform. Instagram was censored. Facebook was censored. TikTok was censored. YouTube was censored. Twitter obviously was censored. Reddit was censored. So there was no place on the internet where people with these minds could come together and congregate and have an opinion on anything. And I think that what that led to is that basically there was a complete shutdown on that ideology. And if it wasn't for Elon effectively strong-arming and buying Twitter and saying, no, this isn't going to happen, I think that we would still be living in that world. We would still have to pretend like there's more than 2 genders. We would still have to pretend like, crime is a socioeconomic problem. We would still have to pretend and engage with all of these bad faith ideologies constantly. And so, no, and that's the reason why I've been very, very favorable towards Elon. I don't care about Path of Exile. Oh, he had somebody play his account in PoE. I don't give a fuck about that. The guy saved freedom of speech. He did. And I think anybody who's not willing to acknowledge that is being totally dishonest. Elon buying Twitter completely was a timeline shift. He totally shifted the timeline by doing that. And you can see now, as soon as that happened, every other platform changed because all of those people that were being pushed down, and again, that is a glitch in the matrix that a, super billionaire buys one of the biggest free speech platforms, says, I don't give a fuck about making any money on this, and then lets people say anything that they want. This is not something that's random, or sorry, well, it is random, but it's not something that's within the scope of what you can even expect to have happen. The Glaze, I think he deserves it. I do. I will always be thankful for that. I will always respect Elon for that. And I think anybody who doesn't is so naive and short-sighted. It is insane. I am totally glazing him for that. Absolutely. I think it's amazing that he did it. And I don't know why anybody would even disagree. 100%, man. Like, absolutely. How is that not the case? You've got to thank him for that? Yeah, we sure do. And yeah, it was such a big deal. Yes, it was such a, too bad it's a Jewish site now. It's not, how is it a Jewish site? I hear shit that's about killing Jews every day on Twitter. What are you talking about? That's not even true. Like, what, because you saw some Jewish person saying something that made you mad? I mostly agree, but I hate seeing those weirdos posting their opinions now. Well, those weirdos' opinions used to be undisagreeable. Like, you weren't allowed to disagree with those weirdos before. Those weirdos had a complete, like, lockdown on all discourse. Nobody was able to say anything to contest those weirdos. Like, those people that think that, you know, like, they think that they're, remember whenever Twitch put that person in charge of the Trust and Safety Council that thought that they were like a deer? I mean, this is a mental illness. It's obviously a mental illness, and anybody who's pretending like it's not is engaging in a lie. So at a certain point back then, everybody had to play along and say, wow, that's crazy, wow. Now we don't have to do that anymore. And I think that if Elon didn't buy Twitter, we'd still be having to say, wow. That's it. Yeah, they used to ban you for misgendering. It's not even remotely close. And Discord's still authoritarian woke garbage. Well, I don't know about Discord. I have no idea about that. Did you see about the huge Iran cyber attack on Stryker? No, I haven't heard about that at all. Twitch is still pretty much a leftist echo chamber other than a few streams. Well, at the end of the day, that's because Twitch wants to make its rules that way, but Twitch has become increasingly less that way. Do you remember back a few years ago whenever people were afraid of even saying the word retarded? Like, I mean, if I did my streams the way that I do right now, if I did that 3 years ago, I would get permanently banned. I would be. 4 years ago, if I did this in 2021, I would be permanently banned in one day. I would. And I think everybody knows that. So, like, again, that's my viewpoint on it. That's the reason why I will always support Elon. That's the reason why I think that everybody should respect that. If you care about Western culture, Western society, freedom of thought, you need to say thank you for that. You do. And I don't think that people understand how big of an influence that had. That totally shifted the entire internet. Because it showed that those opinions and those values were completely unpopular. The oppression of speech was what they wanted, but of course it still wasn't enough. They got what they wanted, yet they weren't happy. They kept demanding more control. That's how they are with everything. Well, yeah, of course, right? Because when you wield power through grievance, the worst thing that can happen to you is getting what you want. Because then you lose your power. Because if you're happy, you have no grievance. If you have no grievance, you have no power. So that means that you're never happy, so you can always have grievance, so you can always have power. That's the reason why these people always move on to the next thing. It's because them being upset and angry is the entire power structure around their influence. So that's the way it works. I mean, I feel like a lot of people know that, but people might not say it.